This is Tell Me Something Good About Retail with Bob Phibbs, the Retail Doctor. Welcome to Tell Me Something Good About Retail with your host, Bob Phibbs, the champion for a more human connection in retail for over 30 years as the Retail Doctor. Bob is the authority on brick-and-mortar retail across the world, who works with some of the biggest luxury brands to independent retailers of all sizes.
Good day. I appreciate you listening to my podcast. You know, I've made over 200 of them, from key thought leaders to authors to founders to experts. I've always tried to learn from all of them along with you. And this year, I'm taking several of those interviews and editing them down to just one topic and remixing them into a new episode, like today. This month, I'm featuring Deanna Whalen, Naples Soap, Tony Drockton, Hammett Handbags, authors Paco Underhill and Martin Lindstrom, and former Global Retail Director for Ted Baker, Chris Brown. At the end, I'll have some thoughts for you about retail in 2025, but let's begin with Martin Lindstrom. He's the author of such books as Biology and Brand Washed. His insights into consumer behavior have shaped retailers for years. Let's pick it up where he spoke about tribes and belonging.
Well, this comes down to a simple premise about you want to have a sense of belonging activated here. Now, when people feel lost, when you don't have necessarily a purpose in life, you congregate in tribes. And a tribe is where you find like-minded souls next to you, and you define who you are, and most importantly, who you're not. And the issue we're talking about here is that because people not only have been through a very difficult financial time, but also because of the issues we're seeing with COVID-19, it's very clear right now that people are desperate for a purpose in life. Now, finally, someone shows up and they can give you a direction, a leadership, and say, this is where we want to go. And even though the message may be extraordinary, extreme, and definitely not something I acknowledge or recognize or can relate to, the fact is it gives people some hope of being together with other like-minded people because they feel alone. You feel alone in particular when you feel there's a threat from coming outside. Mexicans coming over, taking over the country type of scenario. My job's disappearing. I can't even afford to put food on the table. All of that means that people, when they stick together, feel strong. And what do you do in order to create an even stronger sense of belonging? Well, you put on T-shirts, you brand it, because a brand is all about showing to the world who we are, what we stand for, and where we're going.
And then there's the authoritarian doctrine, I think, as well, which is I have this need to be led. You're willing to lead me, and I'll go, and I'll own that I'm an outsider. And that gives me power, because at some point, that's what it's about. I know as you're talking about tribes, I'm reading The Weirdest People in the World and how Western civilization believes that we have been so unique and we're what the world is. We're the best of the world. But if you look at tribes and how societies organically came about, it really was this interconnected of it's a we, not an I.
Empathy is the ability to put yourself in the shoes of another person and see and feel the world through that person's eyes and ears. Now, empathy has disappeared or is disappearing right now because of the bubbles, the social media bubbles, which are self-fulfilling and reinforcing the view you have. And on top of that, for a lot of the research I've written about and done as part of my new book, what we realized is that empathy levels are not just fading away. It's basically been reduced with 50% over the last decade alone, according to recent studies. So why is that happening? Well, three reasons why. Social media is certainly one. The second thing is that we have no attention span at all. We are the instant gratification generation. So what do? We send out a 280-character tweet, but it's kind of black and white. It's not like we have time and attention span to understand the nuances in that particular message. And the third reason why empathy is disappearing is because of odd phenomena. One of them is Botox. Now, I'll explain why. There's an experiment done with women and their babies, newborn babies, 2 years ago, in a clinical experiment. Babies were put in front of the mom, and mom was asked not to do any facial movements, any facial expressions, just a cold stare at the baby. Within 30 seconds, the baby's through a tandem. They could just not recognize the mom. What we know today is that facial expressions is the way for us to connect and bond with other people. And because we're all sitting behind a screen, those facial expressions are slowly disappearing. But Botox, all sorts of clinical studies shows that the more Botox you take, the fewer facial expressions you have, the less empathy you have. It's kind of ironic when we look at each other right now. We are more obsessed with a little size stamped photo of ourselves on the screen where we evaluate how we look like. By the way, explaining the reason why the number of plastic surgeries or operations has gone up 300% in the US the last 9 months, because we are more obsessed with ourselves. I'm more obsessed about how I come across on my Facebook profile, how I sound like. We almost treat ourselves as individual brands, forgetting about that empathy is all about seeing things from different point of view. So what we are seeing happening right now is that social media in particular and other supporting phenomena have really penetrated into the core of what human beings are all about, which is to survive through empathy. And the reason why I'm saying this in such a dramatic term is because studies have shown throughout history that the reason why we as a species have survived is because we were the only species with empathy. And that meant we had the ability to put ourselves in a polar bear's point of view and kind of predict what the polar bear would do. That's the reason why we survived. But remember, for the first time in memory now, we actually are decreasing our degree of empathy and our brain is restructuring.
Yeah, that's dangerous when we're losing our empathy for other people. That's kind of the whole reason why we serve other people. So really nice segue into my next guest, Chris Brown. He's the former global retail director for Ted Baker, and I spoke with him shortly after the news that the apparel chain had gone bankrupt. Now, Chris had been responsible for crafting the amazing experiences in the stores, so we naturally talked about customer service.
The most amazing opportunity in life just to stop and have 3 days with some colleagues that I like and respect and explore myself. And we had, we didn't make it too deep because it could get upsetting, but we had a mentalist there, we had a psychologist there, we did lots of fun, exciting, interesting things. We left them abandoned out in the woods one night. Had to see how they coped with the tarpaulin and a bag of food. And they all cope, of course, and they're fashion people, but they all cope. They all think they're not going to cope. And then the next morning, they're all saying, oh, wow, I'll go camping more often. And they had music, they had guitars, and they had comedy sketches to deliver and so on. So we make it a very, very fun evening. And then the fourth one was other people, which is fantastic. We did a whole thing on prejudice and racism and dwarfism and heightism and fatism. You name ism, we covered it. And we talked about our innate prejudices that we have as people that then spill over into working and dealing with customers. Then the fifth challenge was called the Heroes Challenge. And I'm very proud of the Heroes Challenge. We treated everyone like a hero for 3 days and gave them this amazing experience in a stately home up in the north of England where they met the Lord. The Lord would come along and anoint them all. I mean, it was amazing. And I invented all these, Bob. I developed them all and trained and go on. The one thing you're going to love the most, I must quickly tell you. So on the fourth challenge, it's called the People Challenge. They go to Affleck's. Oh my God, I forgot the name. It's something Palace in Scotland, and it's a spa hotel from the 1890s. And on the first night when they get there, everyone meets and greets, and we're very social companies. Everyone's having a nice drink and a chat. And they start to see this other group of people. It's meant to be a training centre. And they see this other group of people, and the other group of people are arguing with each other and getting quite sort of feisty, and people are walking out and shouting and swearing and whatever. That's that. At breakfast, the same thing happens. The same group starts to kick off, different members. They see little moments in the hallways where these things are happening. And then it breaks out again in the first coffee break on the second day. A massive row breaks out with all these 7 or 8 people from this other company. And then they stop, they hold hands in a very lovely kind of style, and they turn around and they bow to our group, and they see you have been watching a performance of the Kurds for players, and it's the whole thing's been a theatrical production, and it changes every time the group do it. They have to kind of respond to what interaction they get from other people in the hotel and other people because they're not just our people in the hotel. There's other people in the hotel who are on holiday, and it's just the most amazing. But what they then get to do, Groundhog Day style, they coach 2 people from the group. And by then, they've seen 4 or 5 skits. They've started to see that the guy is giving the girl a very, very tough time. And it starts out with everyone believing that the guy is the bad guy. The girl's, she's the poor. She's been
Put upon, yeah.
And they're back at their flat. They're a couple. They're back at their flat, and gradually the true story emerges. And everyone says, "Oh, you tricked us." I said, "No, we didn't trick you. You saw exactly what happened in real life, because what actually was going on. She was having an affair with the boss of the company. The boss of the company wasn't giving the boyfriend a promotion and was trying to work and get him sacked. So he was the wrong guy. But of course, they read all the signs wrong." And we explore, but isn't that what happens in real life? Someone comes to you with a problem like my granny's dog's died, and that's not important to you, but it's important to them because their granny's the most important person in their life, because their parents died in a car crash, and actually granny losing her dog is a much, much bigger event in that person's life, but you don't care because it's not your dog and not your granny. But we go through all this detailed stuff, and people end up at the end of it, at the end of the second day, their minds are blown. But we picked out so many learnings for how to conduct ourselves and how to work with our teams. Well, we have one of the lowest sickness levels you could possibly achieve. But I think that when I left, it was something like 0.5% of the retail population globally was off with sickness. In head office, it was 10%.
Wow.
I created joy for Bob. My whole thing was create joy in the stores, and then that will spill over to the way you serve customers, and then that will be the reputation that this business has, which is why there's been quite an outpouring of grief, stroke, upset and sadness, with people going, wow, I remember Ted, it was great.
Bringing joy to people, that's what it's about, right? You bring enough joy to your customers and they leave their money with you, and you can grow your store business. A great segue to my next guest, Paco Underhill, the author of Why We Buy and other seminal works about shopping. We've talked to him a couple of times, and while malls made a comeback in 2024, Paco reflects on how they might work in the future.
Somebody got up and said Paco Underhill wrote that book about 10 years too early, and that it is more relevant now than it's ever been before, and that much of what you were writing about back then is extremely relevant now. And this is one of the basic issues that the cutting edge of the shopping mall left North America 30 years ago, okay? That if we think about shopping malls in other parts of the world, they have reinvented themselves and reinvigorated themselves. And many of them are not malls, they're alls. They are comprehensive exercises in urban planning and not in get-rich-quick schemes by real estate investors. That the all has housing, has offices, may have churches, libraries, schools, and the tenant mix is a complete selection of people's needs and not the narrow mix that historically we have seen here in the U.S.
So do you think this is going to be a chance for, is it going to be A-list malls that are going to be able to see that? I know when I went to Alaska probably 30 years ago, and I was shocked that there's a mall up there in Alaska, in Anchorage, and it had the post office and had the library. I know Seattle has libraries in their malls. But it would seem like you would think that medical offices seem like they should be in malls and other things. So will it be the A malls, do you think, or would it be the C and D malls where a Penny's is closed and now they're trying to be inventive? How would you see that playing out?
I mean, part of what the dilemma is that for U.S. malls, one of the least understood assets that they have is the crumbling parking lot that surrounds them. But the problem is that the transformation of those properties isn't something that happens in a quarter. It isn't just a quick solution. It is probably a 3-year process to be able to file the plans, do the construction, do the reinvention. And for so many, particularly U.S. shopping malls that are answerable to Wall Street for quarterly results, I think that the process here is going to be very difficult. I thought it was very interesting that Westfield, the Australian shopping mall operator, went private with a European shopping mall operator. And at the one of their properties in New Jersey, they are constructing an apartment building right at the mall. And, if you think of it, there are many malls in Minnesota or wherever where people are going, I can't live in a suburban home anymore, but I want to stay around my friends and my family. Wouldn't it be nice if I could be somewhere where I could walk or take the elevator to a Whole Foods? If you think of the Time Warner Center here in New York City, in the back corner of the store is an elevator going up to the apartment complex above.
Creating residences around malls, that's not a new concept, but it certainly is spreading as people are finding that restaurants and eating and grocery are all part of the mix. Our next guest is Deanna Whalen, founder of Naples Soap Company in Naples, Florida. She has 14 stores across the western coast of Florida. I spoke to her about resilience, having come back from no less than 3 hurricanes in the past 2 years, but I also got to hear her brand's origin story. Let's listen in.
So I was a nurse. I had gotten divorced and I was looking for something to do. I was working in medical sales and it's a very, very cutthroat environment there. And I hate to say I was approaching 40, but in that type of an environment, you as a female are a dinosaur if you are a pharma rep or a sales rep. But I've always had a sales mentality and I love doing sales. Regardless, I've done real estate. I've done, my first job was at JCPenney's in the men's department when I was 15 years old at the mall. I've worked at Chess King, if you remember that.
Chess King. Oh my gosh, those beautiful polyester sweaters. So good.
Brilliant. Yes, brilliant. So I just have always had a passion for retail. After I got divorced, a friend of mine had a store in a kind of a touristy, kitschy area called Tent City. And she said, you know what, you're looking for something to do. Why don't you open a shop next to me? And I thought, okay, that'll be fun. That's
the voice you had at that time, right?
So I know that's exactly the voice I had. That was a voice in my head. So I started looking around at concepts and I thought, what am I going to sell? It's a very high tourist traffic. Is it, what's my concept? Sunglasses, flip-flops. What am I selling that's unique? And a friend of mine that was in retail came over and I said, I want to pick your brain. And literally he came out of my bathroom when we were Googling and looking at retail concepts. And he said, why do you have so much damn soap and lotion in your bathroom? So I gave him about a 45-minute dissertation on eczema, psoriasis, how I've had it my whole life. My daughter's had it her whole life. And how this one worked, but this one doesn't work. And sometimes they work and then they stop. And after this dissertation, we do a Google for natural soap. He goes, what do you like the best? I said, the natural soaps work the best. And he goes, Googles it. And he goes, here's a wholesaler, sell what you know. And at that moment, it was just this lightning bolt hit me. And I went, wow, this is always a passion of mine. I am that person whose bathroom looks like clutter everywhere, but really it makes sense to me because I know what every product is. So it made a lot of sense. I created the concept of Naples Soap Company. We started in 300 square feet, which is the size of a bathroom. And within 2 months, we were knocking the wall down and expanding into the adjacent space. Within another 4 months, I had people driving from north of us, an hour and a half north, coming down because I was a nurse. So I would talk to them about their skin. And you wouldn't believe what people will show you when you're in some kind of this type of business, when they feel comfortable with you as a nurse. They're like, look, what do you think about this? I'm like, whoa. So people had a trust with me because I would establish a rapport with them. And as they began to trust me and they would use the products, it really, I wasn't selling any miracle skincare. It's just that there are so many chemicals in the products that people use nowadays. If you do a reboot and you start using something that's a much cleaner product, typically the irritation on the skin will improve and it will ease, it will get better. That was a very early on philosophy that we took. So I started with another store, maybe 50 miles from us, and then another store, and then another store. And I think through the course of 13 years, I've done over 40 store openings as leases roll through and things like that, and a couple of pop-ups in the Northeast. But it's definitely, retail is a passion of mine. And I love it that I get to combine product development with my retail passion. It's a lot of fun.
If you're not in retail having fun, then what are you doing in retail? Our last guest is Tony Drockton, founder of Hammett Handbags from Manhattan Beach, California. Growing up as a grocer's son taught him a lot. We spoke about the idea that selling is a feeling.
What's the best experience in retail? Can I ask you?
Me?
When you walk in and you go, God, that person was awesome.
Dude,
that
these
store was
jeans
awesome.
I bought in San Francisco, these jeans, as my listeners know, this was $1,000. And the woman, yeah, I'm serious. And in fact, almost everything I have on is because the salesperson. All right, stop that. And
I'm touching his jeans.
and she met me in the elevator, and I just walked in this haberdashery, and she's like, "Oh, is this from in this store?" And I said, "Yeah." And we just chat on the way up, and then we got out of the elevator on the 7th floor. She goes, "Oh, may I take you, show you around?" And I said, "Well, sure." And she showed me these jeans, and I saw the price point. I was like, "Yeah, I'm never trying this on." Right. She's like, "Oh no, you're going to try these on?" I was like, "No, I'm not." She goes, "You know, a lot of guys, probably like one size up, they're a little too trim fit." And I go, "Yeah, I'm never going to try." It goes, "Well, then you're just going to try them on for the hell of it for me, right?" And to make a long story short, it was the best conversation. And I made if any of you retailers are listening to me, I made a decision long ago. If you're selling me the way that I teach people how to engage with another human being, then you get the deal. Yeah. So that doesn't matter if it's jewelry, if it's art, whatever it's going to be. If you keep up the conversation with me and you help me do what I want to do, which is, this sounds crazy. Why would I do that? And I did, and it's terrible that I don't remember the name of the brand, which is on the back. But
you love them.
I love them. And I feel special when I wear them, which is the same way you feel with your jacket, which is the same way with your woman feels like she's confident inside, but she made the choice, whether someone else knows it or not. She like, I want to be successful. And this is my vote. This handbag is my vote that I'm going to be successful, or I am successful, or this is what matters to me. So I totally get you, dude.
Whoever listens to, I got Bob just,
at least two of us.
How you do it. Like what he just said, it's not how much you pay for something. It's how much it makes you feel, how great inside, and how much you carry the energy of the moment you made the decision. And then what reinforces it with someone else walks up and goes, Bob, are those?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
I met that girl. Yeah. How amazing is she?
She's been there, by the way, for 40 years.
That's my
in that one
holy
place.
grail.
Yeah.
If someone talks that way about one of my team members, by the way, I glow.
You did it.
And I hear it all the time.
Right. It's like, I get to work with them.
Megan, Chris, they're amazing. I just have to share this with you. And I'm just like, well, tell me. And that's the whole
Instead of, yeah, we know that.
Right. No.
Right? I want to hear that story.
Yes.
I want to know exactly why it was special.
Please tell me all the details. You know, those are those moments that you cherish as the owner of a brand. I think if you can cherish them as an employee of a company, you're ready to own a brand or a company.
That's what I think. You're ready to, you could build a brand.
If you embrace it as an employee, if I ever get confused, if I ever say to a small business, in the business, I'll be like, God, you're the owner, Bob. And they go, no, actually.
That's my favorite thing to do.
I always go, you're going to be one day.
Yeah.
You get it.
I love
you
that.
tricked me. Not a lot of people can pull that off. You're an owner. You just don't know yet.
And that's a lot of it too. They don't know either.
Yeah.
Right? They're working in retail. They don't have any aspirations to do anything other than I want to serve people. I want to help people. I know how to dress. I know how to accessorize. Just like help people. You're like, but have you ever thought of the next level? See, that's why, just to wrap this up, that you're taking your brand in whole ways you didn't even think of 2 years ago, because you're thinking like, well, what else could we do? We were just listening to a panel where, Outdoor Voices.
Yeah.
The guy comes up with this AR app that his catalog is on the trail as you walk, and you're able to see it first if you go on a walk with them at their select stores. And so 50 to 100 people show up, and they walk through and they start ordering it. And now people are like asking, can you turn onto my trail?
Right.
Even though I don't live anywhere by you. Well, you know, that's all great, but if you're not like Tony, if you haven't like put that foundation work in, if you haven't gone through and said, this is who I am, this is who I haven't, this is who my customer is, I'm not going to cheapen my brand, because that cheapens the way I think of me and the way I think about what we're doing in the world. That's not me. If you don't have that North Star, if I think of it, then damn it, you're going to do everything. And you're going to follow all the bad things. And then you know what you're going to do is you're going to blame everyone else that it's the wrong time or, it's online this or online. You could play in a lot of different ways if you're just willing to open your heart to another human being. So I think the thing is that tell me something great about retail. It's meeting guys like Tony and actually understand that feel it, love it, ham it. That's not just a slogan. He's actually got that on the back of his iPhone. And again, anything else you want to leave our thoughts with? Where should they visit you on Facebook? Or you got to visit him on Facebook because he's got his live videos, which are awesome.
Yeah, Facebook, Hammett Los Angeles, Instagram, Hammett LA. I'm Style Prophet, StyleProfit.
Are you really? I'm Retail Doctor, Style Prophet. I love that. We have to have our little monikers. That's it.
East meets West.
I like that.
Doctors, prophets.
I like that.
I'll leave it with this thought. Everything that he just said resonated with me. If it resonates with you, you're ready to jump into retail. That's it.
That's perfect. That's great. This is Bob Phibbs, the Retail Doctor, and
Tony Drockton, Style Prophet.
Well, that brings us towards the close of our episode, but I wanted to share with you that it's 2025. Nobody's walking into your brick and mortar store just to kill time. They've already researched something online. They used AI tools to compare prices. They know what's out there. When they walk through your door, they're giving you a chance to win their business. If you're not capitalizing on that opportunity with these strategies, that it's about selling more, it's about providing value, it's creating a feeling for that customer, that it's on you and not the market, not politics, not the economy, not your location, that it's on you to create an experience worth coming back for, well, you are on the road to failure, my friends. We're in the Olympics of retail. You have to perform every single day at a high level. When you can do that and provide people a feeling that they matter, then they're going to slow down, not look at their phones, and discover new items from you for their families. That's how you win in January and February. Well, I hope you like this new format. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next month with another group of interviews we can learn from. I'm Bob Phibbs, the Retail Doc. Thanks for joining me.
You've been listening to Tell Me Something Good About Retail with Bob Phibbs, the Retail Doctor. As a listener, you can receive free information and guides when you visit retaildoc.com and sign up for our exclusive weekly newsletter. Thanks for being with us. Remember to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. To virtually bring Bob to all of your crew and associates, check out www.salesrx.com.